Howdy, guys, and welcome to night 74 of Big Brother's Season 23's Overnight Feeds Recap. And welcome to Cliff Notes from outside the Big Brother house. All right, we had the veto competition yesterday. Now, if y'all recall, Xavier was already HOH, so he has a guaranteed ticket to the final three. Ozza and Kyland were on the block, but that doesn't really matter. It's all about who wins this veto to determine who gets to join Xavier in the final three. To see who may win $750,000. So we had the veto competition, and the winner of the veto was Xavier. Yes, Xavier's won HOH. Now he has won the veto as well. Kind of interesting this week. I asked y'all a quiz yesterday about when can you have a situation where the winner of the veto doesn't actually get to decide who goes home. Here it is. Xavier won the veto. He's already HOH. He doesn't get to vote, but he does get to decide who is not going to be on the block, who actually does get to make the selection of who goes home or who goes to jury this week. So Xavier still has a lot of power. And that's what last night's conversations were all about. Who is Xavier going to pull off the block or put on the block to give them the all-important vote leading to the final three. So we're going to talk about all of that. Now, first of all, the veto competition itself. It sounds like it involved questions about events in the house, as we expected. Final four veto is all. It seems like it's always those type of questions. It was during my season with giant slingshots. In this case, instead of giant slingshots, they had a seesaw, a beam that you had to walk back and forth. We saw that last season as well. Was it Christmas, I think, that maybe had some balls slip out last minute? I don't remember it. Anyway, it involves taking a bunch of balls, walking back and forth, sitting it in the little spoon or shovel of this teeter-totter. If the balls fall out, then you have to start all over again. So that's what the competition was, but also they had to be using numbered balls that added up to whatever day a particular question had been asked. Now, the questions were kind of strange. It wasn't what day was the first veto used or something like that. Sounds like, based on what the house guests are saying, there were a lot of questions about kind of non-gameplay, but things that happened in the house, such as on what day did Hannah get her concussion? On what day did the oven catch fire? On what day did the Cookout Alliance achieve their goal, their mission? So a lot of those kind of questions as well, which probably threw these house guests for a loop. The oven fire, apparently, they all talked about how that really was a little confusing. They hadn't memorized that part of it. They did talk about how hot it was outside. And just as an FYI, think about it. I remember my Final Four veto competition. It was brutal. It was the hottest I've ever been in that entire any competition. But you think about it. The sun is directly overhead. You're doing your veto competition 2 or 3 in the afternoon. The sun's overhead. The big walls all around that backyard keep any kind of breeze whatsoever from coming in. And now you've got that green grass, that artificial turf everywhere that's just reflecting the heat. It's turning the whole thing into a giant oven. And they all talked about how brutal it was. Big D was saying he got tired of even hearing the instructions being read out because he was so hot. He just wanted to do the competition and get it over with. Now, it also sounds like they all did the competition at the same time, but there may have been walls or curtains between them, so they couldn't see how other people were doing or keep track of what numbers they were using, things like that. But anyway, that's the veto competition. Xavier won. It also sounds like Big D came in second place with Ozza maybe right behind him. And apparently Kyland did horrible. He mentioned at one point that he felt like he was trying to be too careful as he walked across the beam, so a little too conservative. And it cost him because not only did he not win veto, but he came in last place. And he's not happy about it. We had a lot of conversations throughout, not conversations, soliloquies more, that Kyland just talking to himself and really chastising himself for not having done better when he absolutely needed to. So there you go. Little background. Now let's talk about some of the stuff that happened during the live feeds themselves. One of the first conversations that I thought was kind of interesting, Ozza and Big D are talking. And Big D is telling Ozza, saying, man, if I'm up on the block against Xavier, I've got one person that may vote for me, and that's Brittany. That's the only vote I got. Xavier walks away with the rest of it. But if I'm sitting next to you, Ozza, suddenly I don't know what happens. Who knows? Well, I've got a better chance. He's basically implying to Ozza that he very much would rather be a final two with her as opposed to Xavier. So he's already setting himself up for a supposed final three and hoping that as he tells this to Asa that she's thinking the same thing, and that there's that much more possibility that she would take him if she had the control of the final three. Now, that's the thing. Xavier's won this competition. He gets to decide who to pull off the block or keep off the block. And it sounds like the true final three alliance ends up being Asa and Big D and Xavier. Those three. Kylan sounds like he is the target at this point in time. They are picturing themselves as the final three, which makes me think, how much fun is it going to be watching the jury roundtable in one of these future episodes where all the jury has to sit around and talk about Xavier and Big D and Asa and talk about why each of them deserves to win the title of Big Brother. I'm going to have a blast watching those discussions and seeing what points are thrown out. So there you go. So Kylan is very much the target, it sounds like right now. And he'll do his campaigning, so we'll see if that changes. But Asa, or Big D's already pitching a little bit to Asa about why they really probably ought to be considering taking each other to the final two as opposed to taking Xavier. They both would do that, right? Neither one of them, if they had the choice, would voluntarily take Xavier to the final two chair with them, would they? I hope not. I absolutely hope that was not ever the situation. They've got a lot of conversation. Asa and Kylan are talking about life and movies and melatonin to help you sleep and they're talking a little bit about the competition as well and how hard it was and the ways they approach it and everything, but not a whole lot of real game talk. Kylan, as evidenced by the picture, Kylan spent a lot of time alone and kind of feeling bad for himself, but he is trying to go out throughout the evening and also interact with people and just doing what he can to maybe see if he can change some minds and stick around longer than on Thursday. All right, we've got Big D and Xavier talking. Big D's he just came out of the shower. Xavier at one point said, look, I don't even want to talk about veto and gameplay today. Let's just take it easy. And for the most part, I was going to say for the most part he did. He can't help. No one in that house can help but talk a little game as well. So at one point, right after Big D has gotten out of the shower, Xavier comes in and says, are you happy? Are you sad? What's going on, Big D? And Big D said, no, I'm happy. I'm happy that you won. He said, I'm also very happy that I came in second place. I feel like I'm doing something, that I'm not just last place on everything. I've come in second place now in 3 straight competitions or veto competitions. So I'm kind of happy with how I did at the game as well. And I'm certainly happy that you won, Xavier. And Xavier at that point says, well, you should be, because you're coming with me to final two. That's it. We are final two, Big D. And I kind of believe that. I think Xavier wants Big D to final two with him. But also, Xavier is telling Big D, saying, look, you coming in second, that's what I needed to see. I'm happy that you did so well. Also, he said, if Kylan goes home, the only thing keeping the two of us from making those final 2 chairs is Asa. And I like seeing you compete so well, you doing so well, because I need you to help me beat Asa. That's what we need in order to make the final 2. So Big D, you're doing great, and you're coming with me. And again, I think that is the absolute game plan that Xavier's got. Big D is mentioning, saying, it's going to be tough, though. Kylan is already putting the pressure on me. He said, while I was in the shower, Kylan came in and said, look, are we good? Are we good? And Big D said, I told him we were, but, obviously we're not. And Xavier said, we're going to have to be strong. It's not going to be easy this week. We're just going to have to be strong, Big D, to make it through. And we got to get Kylan out of this house. So they're telling each other they need to just be supportive and not spend too much time talking to Kylan and really just keep each other on the path that they want. There's lots of card games. I ate a little dinner, but playing lots of card games, a lot of non-game talk for much of the evening, just people hanging around trying to get over the adrenaline and everything of that veto competition. Later, we do have a conversation between Xavier and Big D and Asa, and I never could really figure out if Kylan was up in the have-not room where he's been spending a lot of time. I think he may have been in the diary room at that time, but they felt very comfortable talking at that point in time. And so Xavier, Big D, and Asa, they're talking about how they have played the game throughout the season, and from that it moves on to talking about Hannah and her getting evicted and why it was so important to send her out the door. They're talking about how she was too strong at mental competitions, but also that she just wasn't loyal to anyone. They're spending a lot of time talking about Hannah and why they're so happy that she's not still in the game. So the main thing I took out about that is the three of them talking so comfortably with each other. They all very much feel like they truly are the final three, which isn't good for Kylan in his position, obviously. We got Azza, and this is kind of the theme of the evening. They'll turn up. Azza's a little worried. The plan right now is for Xavier to keep the nominations the same, which means Big D makes a final decision on who goes home, goes to jury, and who stays in the house. And the plan is for Big D to send Kylan to the jury house. But Azza's a little worried about that. She's saying, Big D, are you actually going to be able to pull the trigger? Not that I don't trust you, but I know how tight you are with Kylan. Are you going to be able to do this when it comes right down to it? And Big D says, yeah, I know it's hard. I hate it, but I've already been practicing what I'm going to say to him. I guess the speeches and things like that. He said, I'm already practicing. Yes, I'm going to do it, but I'm really worried I'm going to shoot myself in the foot in terms of jury and everything if I do it. Kylan's going to hate me, and it's just going to really hurt my game. But yes, I'll do it if I need to. And Xavier and Oz are both saying, well, now look, here's the thing. If you don't want to do it, Big D, if you're uncomfortable, if there's a chance that you aren't going to do it, then let me know now. Xavier said, let me know now. I'll put you on the block. I'll pull Ozza off. I'll let Ozza cast that vote to send Kylan to jury house, and then you don't have to worry about Big D. And Oz is jumping right in saying, look, I owe him nothing. I'm not like you, Big D. I owe him nothing. The jury's not going to complain if I send him out the door. They're not going to hold it against me. So if you want me to do it, Big D, just say the word. Here's the thing. If I'm Ozza, I'm doing everything possible to convince Big D and Xavier to let me make the decision instead. Yes, she feels like she's a final three. I think she's comfortable that she truly is. But as long as she's on the block, three guys and her, she's got to have just that little inkling that maybe this is all just talk that doesn't really mean anything and she could still be getting sent out the door. I would be doing everything possible if I was Ozza to get myself off that block, cast a vote. I don't care what blood I get on my hands. I would not want to be on the block. I'd be doing whatever possible to let me cast the vote instead. So she's certainly making the offer, but Big D seems to be saying, yeah, no, I'll do it. It's just, I don't like doing it, but I'll do it. And Ozza finally points out, says, well, either way, you just have to let us know, but it depends on what you want on your resume, Big D. Do you want the narrative to be that you kept every deal throughout the entire season, or do you want it to be that you made a big move and sent Kylan out? Whatever you want, you just need to let us know. So again, a lot of the theme of the evening, will he or won't he, in terms of Big D. All right, we've got Xavier and Ozza in the hot tub. I never saw these house guests ever really doing much in the way of swimming in the pool or getting in the hot tub. Now, just as an FYI, during my season, that hot tub was never hot. I bet there were only 3 or 4 days the whole time we were in that house where the water was warmer than lukewarm bathtub water. I mean, it just didn't get hot in that thing. So we didn't spend as much time as I would have preferred in the hot tub. Maybe that's the same thing this season as well. But at least for now, Xavier and Ozza are in the hot tub. Xavier's telling Ozza, saying, look, don't worry about Big D. I know he seems to be waffling a little bit. He seems to be worried about it, but I'm working on him. I'll continue to work on him. He's saying it doesn't have to happen right now. We've got several days before veto and all of that. So we've got time, and just don't worry about it. I'll take care of him. And she seems okay at that. I do think that Big D will send Kylan home. I don't think Ozza has to worry, but as I said before, if I'm Ozza, I'm going to worry no matter what until I'm off that block. We've got Kylan and Big D talking. Again, Kylan had already come in while Big D was showering and talking to him a little bit. At this point, Kylan is really trying to kind of buttering up Big D's ego by saying, look, I know some people haven't given you enough credit and all of that, but I know everything that you've done behind the scenes. I know how vital you've been to the Cookout Alliance, how you've played your own game as well. And I'm not taking anything away from you. I absolutely respect everything that you've done, Big D. So again, Kylan is trying to really reinforce his connections with Big D in anticipation of this veto ceremony. Big D and Ozza talking again. Ozza again talking about some of, or Big D primarily talking about some of Kylan's conversations. Kylan is really putting the guilt trip on Big D. He's pushing hard on it. Kylan told Big D that Big D is not a man of his word, that he is selfish if he doesn't take Kylan to the final three with him, that he wouldn't be a good person if he didn't take Kylan to the final three. Welcome to Big Brother. You know what? There's only one winner. So yes, you have to play a selfish game. That's just the way it is to it. Kylan, I'll give him this. Kylan is very much into integrity, loyalty, trust, everything that he's talking about, that he's wanting Big D to utilize in making his decision. I think that's a core part of who Kylan is. It just doesn't always work so well when you're playing the game of Big Brother, but he's really putting the guilt trip on Big D. Big D is saying that Kylan said, or that Kylan is making him feel like the worst person possible for not keeping Kylan, for sending him to the jury instead. So he's really feeling the pressure, and it's only going to get worse. It's only going to ramp up, which, again, I think I know how it's going to work come Thursday night, but it's going to put everyone's nerves on edge until the vote is actually cast. Now, with regards to the vote, Oz and Big D are talking about exactly how that final four eviction ceremony works. If Big D's the only vote, he says, am I just going to go into the diary room, cast my vote, and then come out and it'll immediately be announced? That's going to be incredibly awkward. Well, it gets even worse than that, Big D, because speaking from personal experience, you don't even go into the diary room. The person who has that final veto win, or who's making the final vote, just announces right there in front of everyone, I'm sorry, I'm sending you home. Mickey did that to me. He didn't go back in the diary room. He just said, Cliff, I'm sorry, but you're out of the house. Big D's going to have to do the same thing. He's going to have to be staring Kylan in the eyes as he ends his Big Brother game. So yeah, it's going to be a tough evening for Big D, but he'll do it. All right, we've got that discussion going on. Big D talking again about this decision he has to be made. He's thinking that the jury is going to be shocked that he voted out Kylan. And I've got to say, I do think the jury probably will be a little shocked when they see Kylan walking into not walking into the jury house, because he'll never go to the jury house, but he'll go to the jury roundtable. And I think everyone will be shocked when they see it's Kylan and not Azza walking out in the fourth place position. I do expect they think the three guys are going to be the tightest possible. So yeah, they'll be surprised. Big D's thinking, yeah, they're going to be shocked when they find out that I, of all people, am the one that chose to vote out Kylan. But Azza at that point is again saying, look, if you don't want that to be your narrative, if you don't want that on your resume, just tell me. I'm happy to do it myself. And then you can tell everyone that you kept every single deal. She said, you'll even, with Kylan, he won't blame you because you'll have nothing to do with it. It's all going to be on me. And if you'd rather do that, Big D, I'm game. So she wants off the block. All right, finally, Kylan is in bed in the have-not room. Here it is over here. Yeah, Kylan's in bed in the have-not room. He's upset. He's just not had a good evening tonight. He's saying everyone warned him not to trust Xavier, that he wasn't going to be loyal. He's wondering if people, us, the viewers, are going to think that he's dumb or an idiot for actually trusting Xavier. Here's the thing. You have to trust some people in the house. You can't go through the entire season of Big Brother without trusting anyone. But sometimes you trust the wrong people. So it's not a matter of being an idiot or foolish in terms of what he did. But yes, he was a little too trusting, and he's paying the price for it. He's upset he lost so badly in the veto competition. I think that's part of it too. Not if he lost by just a few seconds, that carries its own kind of regret. But when you lose as horribly as he apparently did, now he's feeling like he just completely let himself down. He wanted to have three veto wins, I guess, in a row, and it just didn't happen. So he's just not doing well. He's spiraling a little bit. Kyla is saying that this season's winner, especially because this season and all the extra expectations, the Cookout Alliance and all that, he's saying this season's winner really needs to have loyalty. No. I disagree completely. Now, I used loyalty and I used integrity during my season to help build relationships, to help me get a little bit further in the game by people knowing they could trust me when I made promises. I used all the stuff that Kylan's talking about to get as far as I could. But this game's about winning. That's it. There's one winner. And at some point, if you have to throw loyalty out the window in order to get to that point, that's okay. There's no reason that you should put loyalty over winning this game. And that's where Kylan's a little too focused on that characteristic, and it's costing him a little bit of a game. At one point, he actually talked to the cameras, and he said, I hope that the Xavier's family has taught him well enough to be a loyal person, and that they won't be disappointed by the fact he's not loyal. No, I think Xavier's family is going to be happy that he did what he had to do to win the game. We're talking $750,000, right? So there you have it. He's not feeling good at all about that. Again, this is a game about winning, and that's what it gets down to. All right, and finally, lights are out. I don't know, about 2:30 or so. Kylan's restless. He's up. I kind of, I wasn't watching as much once everyone was in bed, but he's popping up and moving around a lot throughout the evening. But there you have it, guys. So now the game plan going forward. Suppose final three of Xavier, Ozza, and Big D. Plan right now. Big D is going to stay off the block. Big D will actually cast the vote to send Kylan to the jury house. At that point, now we've got our final three set, and odds on it have to be Xavier winning this thing, right? But you never know. All it takes is one of the other two winning that final competition and choosing to take the other one with them instead. We will find out. It's going to be exciting. Now, for the next night or two, I don't even know right now when the veto ceremony is going to be held. I don't know if it's going to be a typical Monday as we normally see, or if the schedule's been shuffled around a little bit. We do not have a Big Brother episode this evening, but we'll have one come next Wednesday. I'm excited to watch. I'm excited to watch this competition. So, guys, y'all have a fantastic Sunday. I will be back tomorrow to tell you whatever conversations we may have had over the evening tonight. Until then, y'all have a great one. Cheers, my friends. Xavier. Y'all have a great one. SKD 143. I've been talking too long. SKD 143. Y'all have a great one, my friends. Bye.